Hey there, independent Scientologists. Discover a new perspective to your bridge by visiting ao-gp.org. Get in session with remote auditing using the Theta Meter. Are you curious about where you stand? Head on over to ao-gp.org now and take our free personality test. Join the growing group of independent Scientologists today.
Hi, and welcome to another AOGP Outside of the Church podcast. I am Jonathan Burke. The podcast is brought to you by the Advanced Org of the Great Plains, AO-gp.org. I am here with one of our public, Arthur Moudakis. Arthur has done a life repair and has been involved in independent Scientology for a few years in Canberra, Australia. Did I say that right?
That's correct. That's
Okay.
correct.
And we are going to do a podcast about withholds from the standpoint of an initiate, a noob, that sort of aspect. So, Arthur, what talking points did you think of regarding withholds that our listeners would be interested in engaging upon?
All right. That's a great question. I think it's more for me the realization of how big this topic actually is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because as we're doing the processing, we spent a lot of time on withholds, and I thought I understood it.
Mm-hmm.
And even through the processing, what's the withhold? What's the withhold? What's the withhold? What's the overt act? What's the withhold?
Mm-hmm.
And I never realized the depth and how much is actually attached to this one concept.
Right. And for the folks listening, a withhold is something you are not saying or not doing because of a prior contra survival act, or what we call an overt. An overt act is something that you do or somebody else does that is not the greatest good for the greatest number. We could say dynamics, which are the different aspects of living: you, yourself, you through your family, your children, you through a group, you through the planet, you through animals, you through the physical universe, you through on and on and on. So that's what a withhold is where you are withholding yourself because you're basically good from a particular area because you don't want to do it any more harm because of a prior overt act. And this is what everybody does. Now, we got that out of the way and we got the definition down. And people commit overts. The primary cause of an overt is a misunderstood word or symbol at the bottom of it at the end of the day. Another reason why people commit overts is because they can't have something. I don't know if I've gotten into that with you before. That's a 1950s definition of an overt.
Okay. Okay. But what I find interesting is it's not a lie as such. It's like a lie and a withhold is I mean, they can almost be confused, but they're actually different. So I realized a lie is something you actually have to do. Like you actually have to physically lie. And a withhold, you don't actually physically lie. And that's where the overt act comes into play, where you're trying to hide your withhold. And you may lie to hide your withhold, but it's not a lie. And I found that really interesting because as I was going through the process, it was as if I was lying to myself.
Well, that's the interesting thing. The LRH says that if somebody says, I didn't do this, and that was the overt. That is the overt of omission. That's the withhold that follows the overt act. So prior to every PC's getting an overt off as omitting to do something, there is a prior committing that they have done. So a withhold is post, if there is a lie as an overt, it is after the fact. And a withhold is not just withholding communication. The more important thing is Joe works at the office and then all of a sudden Joe isn't there anymore.
Yes, yeah.
That's the one that most Scientologists fail to recognize, even trained ones as auditors, is that a withhold, like LRH says, the hardest thing to spot is a missingness. Something isn't there anymore. So that is the withhold. That is the obvious physical universe version of a withhold. So a lie is it's white when it's black, or it's black when it's white. And overt is something that you've done that you wouldn't want done to yourself ultimately.
Yes. Yeah,
So
which is really interesting.
Yeah, it can be a lie or not.
Yes. Yes. And then and I remember after finishing out processing and going through this, I was watching the TV series Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
And what I find interesting is how a lot of these things are presented in film and TV shows. And it's almost as if we're being taught through the TV to behave in this way. And it's kind of contradicting in a way, because society has this aspect about it that that's the way you should do it. And then Scientology comes along and it's like, well, no, you got to step up, you got to face these things, take the hard things and make them happen. And it's really interesting to observe, and just the little things. Even when communicating with people, it's like, well, what's wrong with not withholding? Like, what is it? What is it that we can't find within ourselves that we need to withhold from our fellow brother and sister? Like, it's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah, I think probably one of the ones that makes me see that the most, and I just saw it on a TikTok video the other day about the group agreement of rappers, these big mogul rappers, Jay-Z, Puff Daddy, who's currently embroiled in a big huge situation and all this stuff, and they were talking about, it's sort of the code. And you see this, you've seen this in other groups, third dynamic groups, where nobody likes a snitch.
Yeah.
And I just look at that and I go, what? Nobody likes a snitch. So what you're saying is it's not okay to get off somebody else's withholds. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And Breaking Bad, I mean, Bryan Cranston's character, he's the whole show is about his withhold from his incredibly annoying wife character and his brother-in-law. And
Yes.
that's what the whole thing is about, is he's on this big withhold that he's trying to do the right thing for his family.
That's right. That's right. The amount
Jesus
of
dying.
overt acts.
Yeah.
Yeah. I swear, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I swear that was written by a Scientologist.
Yeah.
I could see so many aspects and the nature of the characters, and it was interesting. I've actually seen that series quite a handful of times, but when I watched it after processing, it was a whole different ball game. I'm watching it and I'm like, oh my God. Like, I see this in this, I see that in that, I see his overt acts, I see the withholds, I see the suppression, I see all these things in all these characters, and it's brilliantly done. As entertaining as the series is, because it is very entertaining, but to be able to pinpoint these things in the scenes, and then that's just from a TV show,
Yeah.
and then moving into the real world and seeing it play out in the real world as well, is really interesting, because it actually gave me more of an observer's position than and probably more comfortable being amongst it once I could start observing it, and then I could choose whether I wanted to put my attention towards it or not. And quite often, once I could see it, it was like, I don't need to be around this. I could see what's happening. It's really quite incredible.
Yeah,
Really.
and when you start to recognize these things, Hubbard also says when you get on new OT7, now that's a long ways away from the bottom of the bridge, but I did notice this even before I attested to clear that once you understand the mechanics of these things, it totally changes the dynamics of movies or books
Mm,
or TV shows, because you're invested in, and it's called a drama because it's drama. And withholds create overts, and withholds create drama.
yes.
That's what makes a story up on planet Earth, is there's a hero and there's an anti-hero. and
Yes.
and and so the anti-hero is committing harmful acts against the hero, and the hero wrestles with what he should do, and should he fight back, or he has to fight back. In Breaking Bad, it's he's trying to he's caught in this, well, now I'm supposed to thing, where now I'm supposed to do this and now I'm supposed to do that, and then he starts liking the overts that he's committing, and that he's this person he's always wanted to be instead of a school teacher. And that now
Mm.
I'm supposed to thing is one of the things that LRH talks about, is, well, now I'm supposed to do this, and now I'm supposed to do that, and I'm supposed to respond this way. And you're right. I agree with you. I think in a lot of cases, the things that we're allowed to see in movies and television are what they want us to see, to program us to, well, infight,
Yeah, pretty much.
divide and conquer. Well, the interesting thing is that whether the powers that be that control the media do this stuff, this is overts and withholds are the thing that holds a person back. If a person says, well, I never really got anything in life, and nothing ever happened for me, and I've got a boring 9 to 5 job and all of that. Well, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but based off of this technology that we're talking about, that has everything to do with the being's withholds,
Yeah.
because they're holding themselves back. There isn't anybody or anything holding a person back except themselves at the end of the day. And that's why the concept of a withhold is so important, and why auditing works on withholds is
Yeah.
because as you clean this stuff up and you start knocking these dominoes down, their recall of things improves, and it improves and improves. And then at some point they go, oh, wait a minute, this is me, but it's not me. I'm in a different body, and this is a different place than I've ever been this lifetime. Oh, wait, this is a past life thing. And you kind of have to say, I get it. Just go with it. Give me the information you've got. And that's how removing and pulling withholds and overts from a person open up these long channels of overt after overt after overt. Solution to a problem.
Mm.
Solution to a
Mm.
problem then became a further problem. Solution to that problem then became a further problem. That was Walter White's problem in Breaking Bad. He just
Well,
kept committing these overts.
and it's interesting because the title of the series as well, Breaking Bad, it gives a belief, well, if you can't do it in a healthy way, just go rogue. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Just be full badass and do it in the most unhealthiest way you possibly can. And what I find interesting about that as well is it's easy to idolize a character like that as well. Because on the other side of it, he's so strong on his confront, he pushes himself like he's never pushed himself before through the series.
Mm-hmm.
He faces all these really strong characters and he outwits them and he beats them.
Mm-hmm.
But again, he's using really unhealthy methods to achieve this.
Yeah.
And I think Breaking Bad's a great example of this, because people will aspire to that, to have the courage and the strength to do what he did, to make it the way he did. But then the reality is, like, the series ends quite miserably.
Yeah, well, he like Hubbard says, the being eventually puts their own ethics in,
Yes, yes.
you know.
So instead of taking an honest approach um, to your inner being, you know, a show like this comes out and it teaches people to become unhealthy in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
and to
Yeah.
do things in an aggressive way. You know, it's actually teaching people to be more overt, um, than to consider their own withholds as to why they can't achieve what they can't achieve.
Well, and an interesting side to that is I noticed, and I'm not a political person. I don't take any sides in American politics or any place else on the planet. But I found it very, very interesting when Donald Trump was first running for office and then got elected. And I noticed how, and I'm just going to say this is what I see. His what we were just talking about, his overt behavior is if he doesn't get his way, litigate.
Yeah,
If he
yeah,
doesn't get his way, you just be more aggressive. It's almost like a mafia don sort of thing. He
yeah,
goes over
yeah,
the top because he
yeah,
can go over the top. And I noticed that in dealing with people and things like that, it emboldened people to do and commit overt socially that they wouldn't normally commit socially, because here was this guy that was now our president, and if he can do it, I can do it, which
yeah,
is
yeah.
exactly what you were talking about.
It's
And
it's like,
is
yeah.
that a good thing? Probably not.
Look, the more and more um, I look at the material and I learn, the more and more I see undoing and something new emerging inside of me. You sort of really start to realize how much of a film we're actually in,
Mm-hmm.
and there's little reality attached to it, very little,
Mm-hmm.
and it can be quite difficult to really observe proper reality, whatever that's supposed to be. Uh, and we're running around, working, money, taxes, withholds,
Mm-hmm.
overt acts, and we're all going in one direction. And the funny thing is, we actually know we're going in that direction, which blows my mind even more.
Yeah.
It
Why
blows
don't people stop it?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And the way it's portrayed to us as well, it's like there's a force that's against us in a sense, when really that force is us.
Yeah, you are your own worst enemy.
Pretty much. And as a collective, yeah, that says a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That says a lot.
Yeah, and that is one of the things that he cautions against. Hubbard cautions against in the Keeping Scientology Working series #1 about group bank agreement,
Mm,
where you have all of these banks and they've committed overts, and like one of the things that I never understood as a kid. I never understood this, and I'm sure. Tell me if you experience the same thing, because I think it's an interesting point. Back when I was a kid in school and stuff, and there was a fight on the playground, which didn't happen often. But when there was a fight on the playground, there was this fight, 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 and you're looking around and you're going, "What is the matter with you people? Are you kidding me? You're egging this thing on, and clearly these two are hurting themselves. There's blood coming out. Fight, 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 fight." And that's that group bank agreement. And you just go, we're screwed. Because I was never part of that sort of a thing. I was the guy that got in the middle of it and knocked the two guys apart, when I saw the teacher coming to try and stop it sooner than it would before the teachers got there. And sometimes the teachers would stand there and watch it. And I'm like, what is the matter with you? Do something about this. That's that mechanism, group bank agreement, similar overts of your own, and you see it, and that gets the withhold and the overt and the criticism thing. you know, if a person is critical about something, they're critical about it because they're trying to minimize the overts that they've committed on that person or thing. And that's why you see criticism, is to lessen their overts. And you know, right there, that's another red flag on this whole thing. And that's how fights get started. And you have the third party law. For any argument to exist, there has to be an unseen third party, you know, and all this. But you know, the nature of withholds is probably the most dynamic aspect of the overt cycle, the overt motivator cycle. A motivator is where you feel compelled to commit another overt after you've committed an overt to justify the earlier overt.
Yeah. And it's funny you use that word compel, because to be compelled towards something is quite an unconscious state of being, when you're being compelled to do something, which is really interesting as well, because you know, a compelling response is a very reactive response. And if we're taught to behave in certain ways, especially if we haven't explored ourselves at a much deeper level to understand why we're compelled in certain ways, then you will compel in reactive ways. Your body will straight into it without you even realizing it or acknowledging it. And then
Yeah.
afterwards, you realize, oh, wow, where did that come from? Why did I just, you know, yell at that person? Why did I get cranky? Why did I cut them off? And some people may not even be conscious of their own actions. They're so far in an overt state, if that works.
Yeah. Yeah. They go so far down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, yeah. It's like that goodness, self-acknowledgement, self-awareness, mindfulness, if you will, has just disappeared.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
it's just full blown.
yeah, I mean, Breaking Bad is another a prime example of that, where you just you get so far into something that you don't even recognize anymore what you're doing or how you're behaving.
Yeah, yeah. And what a sad state to be in,
Mm-hmm.
really.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
it's 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 soulless in a sense.
Yeah, it is, because you're completely disconnected, withholding from reality, because you're on such a vector of committing overts on things. I mean, you know, Breaking Bad, there was the one with Al Pacino, say hello to my little
Yeah.
friend, you know, and that character is revered decades later as, I want to be like him.
Yeah,
He's so
exactly.
cool. Right. And you just
Exactly.
go, what is wrong with you people?
Exactly. Which moves into the confront side of things, doesn't it? Healthy confront and unhealthy confront. And it was
Mm-hmm.
interesting going through confront. I actually saw it as an aggressive word.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't recognize or acknowledge the finer aspects of confronting something.
Right.
You know, like confronting time to do study, confronting my alarm clock to get up to go to work,
Yeah.
um, confronting my commitments,
Mm-hmm.
confronting my own mind, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to confronting someone with my fists or a machine gun or lies.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, it isn't necessarily aggressive or antagonistic or anything like that. You know, I mean, that's the way it's portrayed in
That's right. Yes.
non-Scientological society, is confront is, you know, this aggressive, you know, adversarial type of a thing, where it's actually really the opposite. If you're
Yeah.
really confronting something, you know, there's this guy's like, you know, come on, you want to do something about it? Huh? Huh?
Yeah.
You want a piece of me? And you go, you know what? I don't. This
Yeah.
is insanity. That's confront. It's
Yeah.
not, you know, I'm gonna whoop your ass type of a thing. That's, you know,
Right.
I mean, you know, it's portrayed in the media that that's what confront is, and that goes down to the where you see everything is characterized in a battle. you know, it's cricket. It's India versus Australia, the battle for, you know, battle this, fight that. Everything is about war, and that's how you
Yes,
confront something, you know. it,
yes,
it
yes.
and it comes down to now, and at the time of this podcast, Russia is sending ships to Cuba, and they're saying, well, we're just doing drills, tongue in cheek. We're just doing drills. And China's threatening the United States and all this stuff. You know, instead of sitting down and going, okay, what's really going on here? The only way is to confront and battle and slaughter hundreds of millions or billions of people. That is the only way. That's confront. My ass. That's not confront. That's non-confront.
Come on, John, don't be like that. Everybody loves a bit of war.
Hey, you know, that's how Earth is. Yeah, that's right. That's how Earth
Isn't that how
is.
we do? Yeah,
Yeah,
isn't that how we do? You
right.
can't
Right.
just break it, just kill it.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
No
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. I mean, like I'm playing a video game on my computer at night, and it's uh building a sort of a Dark Ages town, and the fighting component in it is minimal, because it's create.
Yeah.
It's a create thing. It's creating, you know, through trade and all this stuff in a town, and with other and all of that. And I just find it so funny how these particular things pervade our society, that if there isn't a bullet and there isn't a gun and there isn't this aggressive confront thing going on, it doesn't sell.
Yep. Yep.
Huh?
Yeah, it's true. Like, you compare films, even from say 30 years ago to now, it's very different.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very different.
Mm-hmm.
And the messages that are being portrayed now around these kinds of concepts are really strong.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with the introduction of media, the way it's advanced to such a degree, which is completely incredible. It's mind-boggling on one hand, but then on the other hand, it's like this poisonous seed in the background, just constantly running.
Yeah, the tainted water.
Oh, yeah. Because I mean, I love the technology because I can use it to learn.
Yeah.
And rapidly as well.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the other side, the influence aspect is it's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. And that's the thing where you're being directed, and it's just, well, this is just how it is, like you said, you know, that committing overts is, well, that's, you know, that's just how we do things on Earth. On Earth is, you know, we're a warlike species. And then you get to that book by William Bramley I mentioned in some quite a while ago on one of the podcasts, The Gods of Eden, where he did the research, and his sole purpose of writing the book was, why does man go to war? And then he had to quit researching it 6 or 7 times, because every time he came up with the end result, that there was off-world influence that was third-partying mankind against mankind in order to keep them warring against each other instead of reaching for the stars. And I thought,
Interesting.
yeah, that sounds right to me. And, you know, I've given it to as many people as I possibly can. Now it's on the internet, you know, as a free PDF. Excellent, excellent book, Gods of Eden. And so it's, you know, I mean, when you look at overts and withholds and things like that, it's not just us. I mean, people, you know, I've said for decades, I want off this rock. Well, the unfortunate nature of it is that things aren't really that much better out in the stars than they are here. And, you know, we're sort of a side effect on the outer reaches of this galaxy, in the physical universe, at least, where what we see here is a result of a much bigger picture.
Yes.
Yeah. Not all societies are that way, but the societies that are influencing us clearly are. because, well, things just haven't gotten better, and the same thing's been going on here for millions of years. It's just they keep that under wraps, and
Yep.
they're doing, you know. But this brings us full circle back to Withholds. There's a guy that we've been following on TikTok for 2 years, that he was always sort of an alternate news guy, and he was pointing out these interesting news events and connecting these dots, basically from the viewpoint of, could it be something? Oh, it's just nothing. Just don't look behind the curtain. 2 years of him doing that almost every day, and they shut his account down.
Yep.
Had a huge amount of followers. And the reason why I'm saying this is that's a withhold, not
Yes.
his. He's confronting. And this is the other definition of an overt. He's being overt and out in the open and confronting the evil that men do and saying, connect the dots, people, connect the dots, people. And then TikTok gets put into Congress, and they're threatening to shut TikTok down in the United States, and they shut his account down because he's telling the truth. And on this planet, Julian Assange is another example where telling the truth to these people who have these incredible withholds and overt acts, telling the truth is an overt on this planet.
Yeah.
That's fucked up. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to
Exactly.
just use the street vernacular, but that's fucked up.
It is, like, we might speak about it quite lightly, but deep down it's really quite serious.
It is.
Very much so, like gravely serious. You know, it's not, yeah, I'll pass, and then, you know, everybody below me will have to deal with it. And that's how it's evolving. It's almost like, I don't know, it's like a bacteria that just constantly spores itself and keeps growing and spores, and we're those spores. And that pile of, you know, negative bacteria is, or minus bacteria, is just growing and growing and growing, consuming any goodness, any good bacteria.
And
Such a rapid.
yeah, and it made me think of the LRH's CDEI scale, which is, well, the expanded and the full scale is know, understand, curious, desired, enforced, inhibited, no, N-O, not K-N-O-W, and refused. And when you see this sort of a thing going on, like we were talking about the TikTok thing, you're at the bottom of that scale. And bear with me here, but it's a bit of a hard left turn, but it's not refused on the part of the people. It's refused on the part of the people that are pulling the strings and controlling it, that they're refusing the information of what they're doing as a withhold. That's at the bottom, the very bottom of the scale. Refused. You've got no, understand, curious, desired, enforced, inhibited, NO, no, and refuse. So they're at inhibited, no, and refuse on information on what's going on, because they're committing such heinous overts. They don't want the 99% to know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because if they do, they'll do something about it. And like LR8 says, you want to control somebody, you lie to them. That's the only way you can control somebody. So if you lie to them, you say, there's nothing happening here, don't worry about it. There's no Wizard of Oz behind the curtain. You don't need to look. Everything's good. Just keep watching these movies and keep eating these poisonous foods and keep drinking this crappy water and keep taking these shots that we tell you need to take. Everything is fine. And LRH warned in the 1950s, do something about it now, because when the technology advances, that plug is going to be pulled and you're going to be sitting there like Neo in the incubator in the Matrix type of a thing, and you're just going to be used to create emotion to feed some nasty beings.
Yes.
It sure seems that way, that something feeds off of the negativity. I could be wrong. It's not something that LRH has said, but it sure seems that way to me. that's why they're withholding it. Because if you wanted to create negativity, you sure wouldn't want to go out in the open and say, hey, people, be negative. We want it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And there's definitely a plus and minus element. And I suppose you could say good or evil in that aspect. And they both have their own driving need for survival.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a
Whatever that is
negative,
for them. Yeah.
yeah, a negative bacteria versus say a positive bacteria. They both operate exactly the same, and
Mm-hmm.
one is to consume the other. But
Mm-hmm.
if one takes over the other, then it will expand at such a rapid rate.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's what why we see what we see is that, you know, the tables could turn and the tipping of the balance could happen very, very quickly. And they have to shut down lines of information that educate people and make them aware of things because, well, you know, the scale of awareness is at some point you become an unstoppable cause. And that's the thing that scares these negative bacterium the most is we gotta be careful because, you know, I mean, they look at us as self-created zombies that they control. You
Yep.
know, I mean, there's no end to what they can do to people if they sucker them into these things because there's so many of them. I mean, I mentioned to my wife yesterday, I said I think a lot of this stuff that they're mocking up right now is they see what's coming with, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to get all dark, but they see what's coming with AI and they see what's coming with robotics.
Mm,
And it's not a matter of when we get there. It's a
yep.
matter of we got there a long time ago and now they're just releasing it on the retail side to us, drip feeding it and everything to see which way they need to
Yeah.
move the map in order to get the sheep to go into the pen that they want. Because if you got robots that can do pretty much any menial job and you have AI that you can put in those robots to
Yep.
do anything menial, 50% of the workforce is no longer needed, if not more.
Yep.
Now what you've done is you've created in your fiefdom an awful lot of peasants that don't have anything to do. And like Ellerate says in The Responsibility of Leaders, if you don't give them something to do, the game becomes get you.
Yep. Yep.
And that is a withhold of magnitude on their part, that things are not the way that they present them to be. And it's a much wider picture than people
Yeah.
believe. And that's why Scientology, independent Scientology, is so important. And we're kind of bookending this with what Scientology Girl and I are doing in what happened to Scientology and why it was taken out. Is because if you have the ability to make people aware and make them completely sentient beings that can see the trees for the forest and give you abilities that the government would otherwise use against you and their enemies, well, then that particular school of knowledge, Scientology, needs to be taken out. And that's exactly what happened.
Yep. Yep.
Starting over 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And that's
Um,
the withhold we're trying to get off is look for it on YouTube. Here it is. Time, place, form, and event. This happened, this happened, this happened year after year after year after year. And those are withholds of magnitude. I mean, and this is what we're dealing with is you have to get the withholds off. You know, the truth shall set you free if you look for it and you do something about it. Not battle, not war, educate.
yeah, definitely. Definitely. I'm going to bring in another TV series
Mm-hmm.
that I found interesting around this stuff as well, and it's V. Do you remember V, the TV series?
I loved the first one in the 80s, and I was very ARC broken when they shut down the more recent series. I mean, literally, I mean, we even we sent an email to the producers saying, "What happened?" And they said they just pulled the plug on us. We don't know why. They just pulled the plug on us for the very reason that you're bringing this up. That's my opinion.
Well, it's the FCC, right? So they're the Communications Regulation Office.
Yep, in the US.
It wasn't axed because of poor ratings.
Yeah.
It wasn't axed for anything like that.
Yep.
But there was something in that TV series that upset some people. And what I found interesting was in the second season, the way the second season ends is when the reptilian aliens finally mind control the humans. And it was
I
that
remember.
episode that it was axed.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that really interesting, especially watching the series from the start. And I only watched it a couple of weeks ago. And then watching the progress of how they slowly drip fed and infiltrated the human race. And then came in as they're doing all these great things, they're doing all this good. And then right in the last series, she finally works out how to control human beings through their mind.
Yeah.
And then it's axed.
Yeah, and this was the short-haired brunette character that is the wife of Ryan Reynolds, or well, girlfriend of Ryan Reynolds, the same actress in Deadpool.
Yes.
And she really plays a great cold-hearted, calculating character. Great bad guy.
Oh, she played it so well.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of another physically, everything. She was really attractive and just held us so strongly and astutely. It was incredible.
Cold-blooded. No pun intended, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was just literally just boom, off the air. I'm actually surprised. I'm actually surprised that it's even available in reruns on streaming platforms and everything. But I think that they probably, if they did that, it would be even more obvious that there was a withhold there. And that brings us right back to withholds is if something's getting too close for comfort, boom, it's not there anymore. That's the hardest thing to spot. It's just gone.
That's right. And then, the series is, a fantasy series, but there are other series out there that are so much more graphic, that are so much more exploitative in nature, that are so much more gore-ridden, trauma-ridden. Yet this fantasy series got axed because of the Communications Office. Like, give me a break.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's just a big red flag. What was it? The one that John Carpenter did back in the 80s.
Oh,
the one with the glasses.
Yes, the glasses. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man, what's it called?
Yeah.
They Live.
They Live. Yeah. And I am and I'm not surprised, but I'm so surprised that it hasn't been remade, because Roddy Piper, the wrestler, plays the main character, and he puts these glasses on and he sees what they look like and sees what all of these signs are actually saying about our civilization and what they're trying to say in advertising and all this stuff, and how hard they're trying to withhold who is really pulling the strings on. It's just brilliant.
Yes.
So it's that sort of thing, and that's why Hubbard says the hardest thing to spot is a missingness, because of the nature of a withhold. If somebody's withholding something from you, if there was a chair in the room and then there's not a chair in the room, and then you came in, you never knew there was a chair in the room.
That's right.
And somebody says, that chair, and you're like, wait, what chair? This is the one that was, there was a chair in here. That is how the criminal escaped the room. They couldn't reach the window without the chair. So you have to do a little bit of detective work on this thing, because of the nature of a withhold. And they go from the smallest little thing, a kid in the cookie jar, all the way up to what is the reality of the reality that we think we're living, and how is it different? And that was what LRH made available to people. And I think that that is the best way. When somebody says, what is Scientology about? I say, things are not as they seem. But if I told you, you wouldn't believe it until you experience this for yourself. Would you like to experience it for yourself? And I won't evaluate and I won't invalidate. I will allow you to experience it yourself and apply it and see if it's true. That is a complete 100% opposite of a withhold. Find out for yourself.
Yep.
Complete opposite.
And it's interesting how all the material is created in such a fashion. And I remember working with you as well. If I was unsure of something, you'd be like, here, read this.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't tell me in your own words. You wouldn't give me your perspective. You wouldn't give me anything. If I misunderstood the material you were getting me to read, then yeah, you'd help me through it.
I'd clear the words and then, okay, now read
Yeah,
it.
yeah, that's right. The way it's all written, you can't explain it. The way it's written is just perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It's you can't flaw it.
Yeah.
And it gives you the self-realization as you're reading the material. You're like, holy crap, like this bloke's left no stone unturned.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is exactly why people revile Scientology, is because the powers that be have made it revilable in order to take the technology and use it for themselves against us.
Yes.
Quite literally.
Yes.
That's the biggest withhold of all. It isn't that the material is bad. It is that they've made it seem bad through the people that are gatekeepers for that material, and then altering that material, and so on and so on and so on. But if you understand the big picture, you need to give it a look.
Yes, that's right. Most definitely. So in that case, then, like if somebody's interested in withholds and learning more about this subject, like how can they go about learning it? Like, is there something available?
Well, all of the materials, I mean, it's a vast tens of thousands of pages are available on our website and other websites. We have the most exact representation of what Hubbard intended on our website in many ways, and we probably have the most voluminous